Part 4. Truth. On the surface, truth is a piece of our inner map that we may feel we can rely on. At a fundamental level, truth is information that has the feeling of being true. Truth is a human experience. The experience of truth has two dimensions. First, information is felt to be true when there is a sufficient match between our experience and our understanding. The sun rises from the east, and fire is hot and can burn you. These are things that are told and we can check for ourselves. The results are always the same, so it is felt to be reliable and true information. Second, information is felt to be true when it is in agreement with other people. For instance, we are taught that a certain level of personal cleanliness is needed, otherwise we are likely to get sick. What is expected is set by the people around us. This agreement helps us function alongside other people. We act out the truthfulness of this understanding by following what is expected. In our interaction with people, we are given reasons, often in the form of a story, as to why things are the way they are. When the story is agreed upon and matches our experiences enough, we can take the story to be true. The generally agreed upon stories constitute our cultures and define our societies. Think for a moment about our own stories. It may involve our family history, the story of our country, stories of our religious teachings, things we learned in school, and finally our own life, tying it all together. From this, we see that truth as a human experience is an agreement between our experience and the people around us. How it is expressed is relative to the time and place we live in. Taking truth as a human experience based on feelings is only the beginning, though. Truth is often experienced as a piece of information that is perfectly accurate in representing reality. It has the same basic idea as perfection. A piece of information can be taken as perfect, an absolute truth. An absolute truth is a truth that is accurate in any condition. It cannot be added to or expanded without feeling that it's damaged or degraded. Just as perfection is a low-resolution view of a thing, perceived absolute truth is also a low-resolution piece of information. It is subject at all time to our half-truth of understanding. An absolute truth is something as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. Or is it? Math is at all times an abstraction, a certain way of mapping reality. Proof that 1 + 1 = 2 is entirely dependent on certain conditions. Counting apples at the store is one thing. Adding a dry log to a burning log is another. What you get is not two logs, but ash. 1 + 1 is true, in cases where conditions are right. A piece of information can hold true as long as conditions sustain it. As conditions vary and change occurs, we experience the impermanence that is present in everything. By accepting the half-truth of understanding, we can gain the capability to both depend on information and allow for its change. Truth is information we can agree on, but may be subject to change. Truth is not absolute. Neither is it relative to us. Truth is something much more profound. Things spoken in truth have power that extend beyond the opinion and intention of the speaker. The power of truth is found in the speaker's approximation of patterns of reality. Words of truth have power when they allow us to successfully navigate our lives. Some words of truth are more powerful than others. A story that is more true sustains its accuracy across more conditions. Stories of religious origin have sustained people for thousands of years. Something in those stories reflected the patterns of reality in a meaningful way. Although many other stories have been told, few, if any, have been so successful. These things that are deeply true starts with what we know and extends our understanding into things we do not yet know. It allows us to successfully travel into the unknown. It can both allow us to do things we could not before and see and act with greater potential. It is much like when we are children, and sometimes shy around new people. A parent will tell us truths that it's okay and we should play with other kids. This allows us to take steps to get to know others, to move into the unknown. In like manner, a scientific model was developed around the ideas of atoms. The model was confirmed with many experiments, giving confidence to its validity. The model predicted elements that were not yet observed. Scientists then created conditions that would, according to the model, produce additional elements. When the conditions were met, the predicted elements were in fact observed. The model allowed exploration that would not have been possible without it. Truth exists independent of us. Something is true when it tells about something that is real. What is real will keep its properties no matter what we think. This makes it different than from what is imaginary. Although upon close inspection, the border between the real and the unreal gets murky, but for our purposes, we will consider them as separate things. Rocks will be hard and water will flow regardless of what we say about it. When something is said to be real or true, what we are saying is that this piece of my map correctly approximates an observation. But what is it that we are observing exactly? What does the whole map, at least in theory, look like? What is it that we are modeling? And what is the whole story? In broad terms, the truth of reality has two aspects, the impersonal and the superpersonal. The impersonal truth constitutes all physical properties that make up the universe. This includes all the possible manifestations of matter and energy. It is called impersonal because it is made up of the properties that generate our physical experience. These properties are independent of imagination. We have direct experience with some and not others. For instance, some waves of energy we can see, as in the visible light, but others we cannot see, as in radio waves that pass through us without us noticing. We embody these physical constraints, most of which goes unnoticed. We experience the world as it is, just the way it is. When we are walking, lifting, looking, creating art, or just about anything, we are operating within the impersonal truths. As we navigate the natural world, we come to understand some of the cause and effect relationship around us. We see how water runs, how animals leap, how the sun feels warm on us, and play with fire to keep it going. In short, much of life is learning lessons of the impersonal truths. Over the course of history, we have passed our understanding of the properties of the physical world from person to person in one form or another. Today, humanity has embraced science, the systematic study of the physical world through observation and experiment. This has been such a powerful tool that has replaced much of the cultural influences, religious teachings, and traditional wisdom across the world. What was once called being possessed of spirits is now called epilepsy and treated. Customs of cleanliness to appease the gods are now known to reduce infections of unwanted bacteria. Teams of scientists from across the world work together to accomplish amazing feats, such as producing the first image of a black hole. We can see that science has united people from every place on the planet into living in a single reality made up of the physical world. Science is the discovery of the impersonal truths in which we live. What is the big picture that science is discovering? The universe seems to function in a certain way, with certain rules and parameters. Everything from the speed of light to how fast a ball can be thrown is governed by these rules. A full set of these characteristics that are possible is the complete impersonal truth. Is the complete rule book of how the universe functions. How much of this complete truth we actually understand is up for debate. People from every age have heavily overestimated what we actually know, and there is no reason to believe that we are any different. What we seem to understand and be confident about is known physics. There are clearly many other areas of science, such as biology and chemistry, etc., but physics studies the basis upon which everything else is built. It is the beginner's guide to building the universe. That part of the universe's rulebook that is not well understood is referred to as metaphysics. Metaphysics are functions of the universe that could be computed with mathematical precision, but we do not currently know how to do it. Much of religion and mystical experience involves seeking to understand the metaphysical. The border between known physics and metaphysics has been changing rapidly over the last century. This is why our cultures and religious views have been changing. Areas of life that were once mystical, say why people get sick, or what stars are made of, are brought into known science. Still, if we're honest with ourselves, we can see that we are all playing from the same rulebook. There's only one physics that governs human experience of any kind. The mystical and the mathematical are but two sides of the same coin. If we then define science as a process of realization of the impersonal aspects of reality, then there is nothing within metaphysics that is not also discoverable by science. At the same time, we should not discount the metaphysical claims just because we cannot calculate it. The advancement of science is not even close to being done yet. If history is our guide, then the science of the future will look quite different from what it is today. We have seen that over the last few hundred years that science reinvents itself over and over again, pushing us into the unknown. From Newtonian to relativity to quantum physics, the science we look forward to is the eventual science of total realization that encompasses all existence, revealing to us a greater and greater extent of the impersonal truth. The complete impersonal truth is referred to here as just physics, meaning the total physics, the measurable, metaphysical, and unknown. Our sense of reality comes primarily through the impersonal. Physics is very hard to argue with. Its truth is evident in the use of technology that we use every day. However, it is lacking in some very fundamental ways. Nothing about the impersonal tells us what to do with it. That we have to figure out for ourselves. As we are figuring this out, we are finding there are ways of acting that are deemed good and some that are deemed bad. These distinctions are not wholly arbitrary. We are navigating consequences that come out of nature itself. If we lie, there is a natural consequence. If we self-deceive, there are natural consequences. If we sustain loving relationships with others, there are measurable natural consequences within the body and outward in the world. We all know this. For every action, every word, thought, there is a reaction. Some lead towards happiness, and others, well, not so much. Although much about the social world is an ocean of human-made decisions, there is at the base a physical, impersonal aspect. It is not evident that good and bad are just constructs of our imagination. For instance, why is it that lying and self-deception cause stress and a loss of close relationships? Why does killing another person have such a dramatic effect on most people and on society? It is because the consequences have a real impact on our biology and in the physical world. If we take a step back and consider the great many ways these consequences impact and mold our behavior, it looks like we are being pushed towards some ideal characteristics. There is a universal hope that if we take on those characteristics, whatever we understand them to be, we generate happiness. What exactly those characteristics is not universally clear. Humanity does not have a universal agreement on how to attain happiness. Even the meaning of happiness, or that there is a goal at all, is controversial for some. What is clear, when we inspect closely, is that we did not make the rules. We are in constant self-discovery and adjustment to the parameters that bring about happiness. The multitude of characteristics that make us who we are at any moment is what we can call our manner of being. From this perspective, life is about discovering the way of being that produces happiness, both individually and collectively. If this way of being is discoverable, then it means that the origin of these characteristics originates in a place independent of our imagination. It is in all senses real and is found through personal experience. In that experience, we can see ways of being that produce misery and others that produce peace and happiness. We can then feel that there must be a manner of being that produces maximum happiness, not just the fleeting happiness of pleasure, but a deep happiness of complete fulfillment, to experience life as a pageant of grand beauty and of immeasurable value. This manner of being, that is the pursuit of every person, is the superpersonal truth. Superpersonal truth means that which is above and beyond the personal, that pertains to conscious action. It is the immeasurable, maximum way of being that all life aspires to. The superpersonal truth is the end goal of all life. In the big picture, the superpersonal truth is found in the theory of evolution. The process of evolution seems to indicate that nature is pursuing a manner of being that can survive across all circumstances. Life on Earth has experienced at least 5 mass extinction events, each time leaving animal and plant life that had characteristics that allowed them to survive. In order to do this, the surviving life has to be able to regulate itself and the environment in more and more dramatic ways. If we continue to compound these characteristics, we get the ability to survive over more and more extinction events. At the full extent of this process, the superpersonal truth is a way of being that can survive anything, a functional immortality. We can feel this drive in the fear of death, driving us to find a manner of being that surpasses our relatively short lifespans. This is only part of the story. The superpersonal truth is something that affects everyday life. It governs how we should act in relation to others, ourselves, and the environment. To observe this, we can see that we are forced to decide how to act. For the most part, we can only do one thing at a time. We have to choose what to say, what to do, and how to manage our minds. That choice forces us to value one thing over another. We may say that much of our decision-making is unconscious or socially driven, and so it is. Still, the process of making conscious the unconscious is part of the process. Discovering the social conditioning and making adjustments is itself a pursuit of the superpersonal truth. It does not change the fact that we exist in a forced valuing ranking system. We have to choose one thing over another, and that choice exposes our values. Values being the internal map that says this thing or behavior is better than another. If we are ranking one thing over another, then there is that which is of highest value. This is usually an unrealized ideal we aspire to. We all have this inner highest value. Whether or not we have done the work to understand our highest values, they live within us at all times. We do not necessarily act in accordance to our highest values, but often in relationship to it. We may feel that we should be kind to loved one, but argue with them anyways. Our inner conflict in this relation is the values we hold up as ideals. This relationship is shown by what we think, or what we do, and what we say. The ideal highest value is our estimation of the superpersonal truth. The superpersonal truth is lived out in such a way that if we do not adhere to it enough, then we suffer and cause others to suffer. This suffering is passed from generation to generation, impacting the functioning of our bodies and minds. If our collective manner of being is not close enough to this truth, then we do not survive as a species. If we do not kill ourselves first, then our environmental impact will. This is the meaning of survival of the fittest. We must fit ourselves to the superpersonal truth. Truth is not relative to our beliefs, but measured against an as of yet unrealized objective reality. In this way, truth is a force of nature, pushing our evolutionary development. This discussion of the superpersonal truth has been to show its existence. Specific discussion of what it looks like at a universal scale and what exactly are the human characteristics we're talking about are covered in other sessions.